All right, good evening, everyone. Thank you very much. I'd like to call to order this work session of the Pawtucket School Committee on Thursday, December 7th, here at Jenks Middle School. Clerk, please call the roll.
Ms. Vinolo. Here. Mr. Charbonneau. Here. Ms. Doobie. Here. Ms. Fernandez. Here. Ms. Grant. Here. Mr. Shalal.
Here. May I ask everyone to stand for the Pledge of Allegiance? I
pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you very much. First item on the agenda for tonight's workshop will be public. Please forgive me, public participation. First one for public participation. May I please have Carol?
My name is Carol Burns. I'm here to talk about McCoy Stadium. I just have one request for all of you. It's simply this. Please do not demolish McCoy Stadium until you are 100% sure that the school can be built on the site. I'm not an expert, but I know of two major issues that have yet to be resolved that could impact the building site. One is the question as to the viability of the land being able to sustain the massive weight of this enormous building. As we all know, the stadium is built on Hammond's Pond, which still has a running stream underneath all the way to Newport Avenue. What if the land and whatever is underneath will not hold this building up? Studies are not complete at this point, and more studies need to be done to ensure the viability of the land in regard to the school building. The second issue is the McCoy Annex acreage that cannot be built on due to the LWPF. What will happen if this annex land is not available to build on? If the stadium is demolished before all these issues are resolved, the city of Pawtucket will end up with another empty lot. I am a member of the Save McCoy Committee, and the first thing I and several others did was have posters made requesting people to sign to stop McCoy from being demolished. I went over to over 80 businesses with the posters. I went to bars, restaurants, YMCAs, every place I could think of, and not one business denied me, not one. In fact, most of them, if not all, were very outspoken as to how they felt about McCoy. Some of them were outraged at what was about to happen and praised what we were doing and gladly put up the posters. The one I remember most is the Chinese restaurant across the street from McCoy. I really had to back myself out the door because he just wouldn't stop talking about how outraged he was. We have right now over 5,000 signatures and still counting. What I heard from these people is that they voted to have a new school built, unquestionably, but they never voted to have McCoy torn down. And if that bit of information was on the bond, they would have voted no. I don't know why it wasn't on the bond, but it wasn't. The politicians are voted in by the people, and they are expected to work for the people who voted them in. And I can tell you with certainty that the people who voted the politicians in do not want to lose McCoy. They really don't. And they have stated that if McCoy is demolished, they will fight back by the voting booth come the next citywide election. So please refrain from demolishing McCoy until all the T's are crossed and all the I's are dotted. That's really all I'm asking. Please just wait until you're sure that you can build on this site so we don't lose a very good building and have an empty lot. Thank you.
You can. Thank you very much. Up next, Kathleen.
Good evening. My name is Kathleen McCoy, Kate McCoy. Thank you all for the opportunity to speak here and for all of your hard work. I really appreciate it. I'm very grateful. I come as a representative of the Save McCoy Stadium Committee. I don't know if many of you have heard, but I've spoken to hundreds and hundreds of people in this great city. And so I am here to pass on their concerns and hopefully represent them to the best of my ability. On Monday, Jim Shalell had said that he was going to postpone the McCoy Summit and invite a representative from the Soloviev Group to do this right for transparency, something we have been asking for, something that we deserve in this process. I heard the echoes of many members at the end of that meeting, the last meeting I attended, talking about the importance of transparency and that to be a goal. And then you came out and wanted to postpone and invite a representative of the Soloviev Group to discuss the proposal that they had presented, which is quite a proposal. Protecting it, keeping it public, having a committee of local citizens, working hand in hand with the high school, and obviously $40 million for a multi-purpose athletic facility for the high school is a wow, right? Revenue generator for the city, still a place where everyone can come together, unity. And then we see a letter sent yesterday, signed by Mayor Grebian, Jim Shalell, and Terry Mercer, that they will no longer be in talks with the Soloviev Group. And this is after, on Monday, we were to postpone and speak with the representatives. So we do not feel that transparency is being respected or a goal in this process. I'm going to read some comments by Michael Pompili. It is extremely disappointing that the city would go through the charade of being interested in making this work, only to pull the rug out after the meeting was already scheduled and advertised to the public. This is a failure of communication and a failure of action on the part of the mayor's office for not collaborating more closely with the council, school committee, and the community through the process. It feels as though there's great miscommunication here. I went to the city council meeting last night. They were unaware of this letter that was signed by Terry Mercer. These are concerns. They're grave concerns. We ask for transparency. We ask for due diligence. We ask that this McCoy Summit include a Soloviev representative and that it is public. We ask that the city vote on whether to demolish McCoy Stadium in light of the development of the proposal. This is not just a stadium. It's a lot more than that. It's a landmark. We can look at other sites. We need to look at other sites. There needs to be a plan B. Truly, please, the community is asking. Create dialogue with the community. The community has been cut out of this. And it is not fair. It is not in public interest. And the mayor did speak yesterday after the letter came out. Hirschman went on and did a very nice, is that my time? Oh, sorry. Thank you, sir. Hirschman came on and did a great interview on Radio Now. It's not posted, but Grebian came on later. This is last night after the letter came out. And he said that he would consider a more formal proposal through February 15th from the Soloviev Group. He said this on Radio Now. So, there just seems to be grave miscommunications. The public is not happy with being so confused in all this. Let's please work on transparency here. This is a disservice to the community and a great disappointment. We deserve better. Thank you very much for your time, everyone. Thank you.
Next person signed up for public participation, Mr. Clovis.
Hi, everybody. Members of the board. Thanks for allowing me to speak here on the commission. I was looking forward to the summit, but I guess that's been postponed. Seems to be a lot of confusion. I'm not clear what's going on. One minute it's being considered, next it's not. I know there's been a lot of public input all in favor of preserving McCoy Stadium, trying to figure out a way to incorporate it. My concern from the start, however, has been the fact that the public was never informed that the new school was going to be, one, was going to require it tearing down McCoy, and two, that it's going to be taking over public recreational space that's supposed to be protected in perpetuity for the residents. I think had that information been provided, I'm not sure whether that bond would have passed for the unified high school. But those are some of the concerns that I have there. And I do hope that the members of the Pawtucket School Committee here reconsider whether or not it makes sense to look at other options besides simply tearing down McCoy Stadium and taking over public recreational space. Again, it's being done out of process. The LWCF specifically requires a conversion process that needs to be submitted prior to taking over the property. Notwithstanding what's been suggested, that simply giving the school committee site control is not tantamount to giving the property where it is. Obviously, property rights don't extend to simply just deeds. The complete control of a public recreational space is a conversion. So I encourage you to look at the statute and the regulations regarding that. Other than that, thank you. Appreciate your time.
Okay. Thank you all. Next item up for on the agenda. Can I please have a motion to approve the previous minutes meetings from October 10th, November 9th, and November 14th? So motion by Ms. Spinolo, seconded by Deputy Chair Grant. Discussion? All those in favor? Opposed? Okay, thank you. Next item, old business discussion action item. I'm going to turn it over to our subcommittee on policies, Ms. Doobie, for second passage on 3 of them.
Okay. The first policy we have here that passed is AC, non-discrimination, unlawful harassment, and sexual harassment policy and procedures. As you can see, if you look at the second full page there under Title IX Coordinator, the language that we discussed is in there that says that the superintendent will designate an individual to serve and that this contact information is available on the Pawtucket School Department website or by calling. So that's the only change that was made there, but that language was not spelled out in first passage. As I said, I would put it there for the second passage.
Motion approved by Ms. Spinolo, seconded by Ms. Grant. Any discussion? All those in favor? All those opposed? Terrific. Ms. Doobie, second one?
The next one is BEDH. No changes were made in first passage. The changes that are in here are noted in bold. And there, once again, it was made in first passage.
Motion by Ms. Spinolo, seconded by Ms. Fernandez. Sorry, excuse me. Discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
All those opposed? Wonderful.
And the third one here is JICJ. This is the electronic communication devices. There have been a few news stories that have come out since we passed this. So I do want to clarify what this policy is doing is it is giving our administration the ability to implement procedures around electronic communication devices, otherwise known as ECDs, otherwise known as phones, is what we're pretty much talking about here, smartphones. And it says that they may involve preventing that use throughout the school or classroom, but that any procedure that is built has to include a clear plan for allowing ECD usage in case of an emergency. I don't know if anyone saw the story about Central Falls, which recently did this in their middle and high school. But when we talk about safety procedures, one item that they brought up is that students who needed their phones for medical reasons were given different pouches that had Velcro on them. So yes, they would have their phones in a pouch, but Velcro is how they would be able to access it. So that's how they're doing it. And almost immediately afterwards, there was a North Providence story about that they're using a different way of using lockers in their school. So this is not endorsing any one model or any one size fits all for all of our schools. This is a step that can be taken. And at this point, our administrators and schools would decide what would best work for their communities on an individual or larger basis. But I don't know if the superintendent wants to speak to that at all, but that's what this policy is doing. I just want to be clear. It's not making any change right now to our schools.
Motion by Ms. Spinola, seconded by Ms. Grant. Discussion. Superintendent, did you, oh, sorry, Mr. Charbonneau, go ahead.
No, please, Superintendent Roy.
Did you want to say anything? No, I was just asking, did you want to add to, what Ms. Doobie had to say?
Oh, no.
Okay. I'm sorry, go ahead, Mr. Charbonneau.
Just,
Do we as a district now take on the responsibility of at least providing the pouches or providing some mechanism for the individual teachers to implement a procedure?
No, because the policy doesn't say will implement. So the language merely says that a school administration or individual teachers may implement procedures around ECDs. Some teachers are already doing procedures in their classrooms. I know when I went to parent-teacher conferences or back to school night, one of the teachers I walked into the classroom showed that there was a wall unit that the students could put their phones into. And that was how this teacher was handling it. So because I think our teachers don't want to be holding the students' possessions. So I think that they may have been coming up with ideas, but quite honestly, if they decide as a school to go forward with this and it was a purchase, it would come before this committee.
Okay.
All right, terrific. Any other discussion? All those in favor? Aye. All those opposed? All right. Next item is, on the agenda is our new business discussion action item. First item is approval of the 2023 Clean School Bus Rebate Program for a student. Assistant Superintendent Ramsey.
Good evening, everyone. Thank you. Before you this evening is an application for approval for the Clean Bus Act. It allows us to get, or allows for a student to get rebates to replace existing buses with zero emission models. We have gone through 3 rounds of approvals on this. This is the first time that it's gotten to the point where they would like, we've gotten far enough in the process that they would like the school committee to know about it and approve it. And I've asked Richard from First Student to join us this evening. Richard, to answer any specific questions about this act. It came from the Bipartisan Infrastructure Law of 2021, and it speaks directly to zero emission model buses. Come on up, Richard.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Richard Caprirolo. I am First Students Area General Manager in Rhode Island. Happy to be here and looking forward to answering some of your questions on round 3 of these EPA grant applications.
can you tell us exactly how this program works?
Sure. Round 3 is a lottery program, very similar to what round was. No guarantee who's going to get it. Every school district's trying to submit their application, not knowing if they're going to get approved or not. There is about $500 million from the EPA that will be awarded sometime in the spring, around April of May of next year. We're looking to apply for 5 buses as part of round 3 for the Pawtucket School Department. In round 2, which was a merit-based program, you had to meet certain criteria in order to qualify. We applied for 5 buses for Pawtucket. We haven't received the results yet. So this is a lottery, essentially, from the EPA. Yeah.
So is there a potential for 10 buses? If you said we haven't received the results for round 2, is it, if round 2 comes through, they take you out of round 3?
No, it's just independent.
Okay.
The requirements for each application is got to be a minimum of 5 buses and a maximum of 25 buses. In Rhode Island, we are working with 4 different customers, 4 districts essentially, Pawtucket being one of them, for 5 electric buses.
And so is it just a true lottery where all of Rhode Island districts could end up getting pulled, or are they pulling like one from each state or something like that?
There are 2 groups of school districts that are going to be considered by the EPA. The first group is what they call priority districts. The criteria for that are environmental, poverty, tribal areas, urban areas, and the other group is the non-priority, typically private schools or schools that are located in areas where poverty, for example, is not an issue. They can still apply, but 40% of the EPA grants will be awarded to that second group, while 60% will be awarded to priority districts. And Pawtucket is considered a priority district.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome.
Ms. Grant?
So I guess I'm a little confused. No one really explained what this was. So this is an application to apply for rebates for,
Electric school buses.
okay, so, and you're from First Student, correct?
Yes.
Okay, so what happens if we go out for bid and we decide to use someone different than First Student?
That is one of the questions that we're looking to get some answers from the EPA when they award this, because they are not linked to one of the requirements is not that the school district has to stay with a particular vendor, but it's a fair question. What if somehow the district decides to go with another vendor? What happens with those units that were awarded? We don't have a final answer yet on that. It's something that has been presented to the EPA.
And as of right now, how many electric buses does First Student have?
In North America, over 300 buses.
Not in North America, in this area.
In Rhode Island?
Because we would get them from Rhode Island. I don't think a bus from
Correct.
California is gonna commute here.
Sure. A couple of weeks ago, we actually celebrated the first 4 electric buses in Rhode Island, and they are with the Providence School Department.
So we have 4
Correct.
in the state of Rhode Island
With First Student.
with First Student. So I'm confused about this lottery and five buses and things like that, what they were talking about. What does that all mean? Can you clarify?
So each application can include a request for 1 through 525 buses. One electric bus,
Yep,
all the way up to 25 electric buses.
but you don't have 25 electric buses. You only have 4.
No, what would happen is, once we get awarded, we win a lottery per se for the number of buses that we apply, then the EPA will grant some money that would allow us to purchase those electric buses. So they give us money, essentially. It's a rebate program.
Okay, so they'll give you the money to purchase
Correct.
the buses, but the districts have to apply for these.
No, we apply on behalf of the district.
Okay, and then what is this actually, this rebate form that we need to fill out and submit?
The EPA is a new requirement for the EPA. They want to get an authorization or some sort of certification, not just from the district, but also from the school committee, to make sure that everybody is aware of the fact that First Student will be applying for this grant on their behalf. It's something new for this round 3 grant program.
Okay, so when would this go into effect? When would these buses, whether 1 or 5 of them, come to the districts?
If we get lucky enough to get those 5 vehicles, production is taking from 1 to 2 years.
Okay, so
The
this
four-
would be at least a year or 2 away.
Correct.
Okay, and then what about, so these are electric buses. Are they supplemented with gas at all?
Not at all.
So what happens, we go back a few years to the December debacle, and these kids are on the road for hours, and the electricity runs out on the bus. How long is this charged for? How long does
There
the
are
charge
different
run?
types of vehicle configurations. For our area, Rhode Island, we are asking for buses that have a range of 100 miles. Pawtucket runs, for example, they average about 25 miles per day.
Okay, but if there's traffic.
If
and
the bus
they're
is
not-
moving, the energy is not being used other than just for heat in the wintertime or air conditioned in the summer.
Okay, so it actually has to be moving for it to
Consume energy.
consume energy.
Correct.
Okay, okay. Thank you for the
My
explanation.
pleasure.
So I take it that you have other districts that are also
Yes.
applying?
Correct.
The other question I have is, I understand from watching TV, and I don't know if this is true or not, but electric batteries catch on fire, and they are not easy to put out.
There have been reports of incidents like that. It's something that every vendor is trying to learn from in a hurry. It has not happened with First Student buses. I don't know what company that incident occurred with. I can tell you that we have 270 electric buses, the entire fleet in the province of Quebec, Canada. The entire fleet is electric. It's being used for 2 years, no incidents.
Okay.
I do think it's very exciting, and I do hope that Pawtucket is able to benefit from it with 5 buses, and then hopefully our whole fleet, it's better for our community, it's better for our students to not have exhaust and whatnot. So I know that we have policies around idling and to help minimize that, but I mean, I know it's just a lottery, so you just gotta hope
Yeah,
we win.
gotta see. I can only add that each school bus that uses diesel emits 54 pounds of emissions every year. By replacing each one of those with a school bus that runs on electricity, we'll be taking 3.75 pounds of carbon dioxide every mile driven. So we are all excited, and I hope we can get signatures soon. Our deadline to submit this to the EPA, the First Student deadline is December 15. Looking to get this approved soon. I have additional information on these flyers that we can share with members of the committee.
The buses, are they full-size, regular education buses, or do you have capabilities of customizing them for special education?
Great question. They could be configured any way that the district requires. The grant is for type A, meaning small buses, and the money that the EPA will grant for each one of those type A buses is $265,000,
That's a small bus?
small bus. In type C or D, which are the full-size nose and the flat nose buses, $345,000.
So
Each
it's not
electric
choice.
bus costs about 3 to 3.5 times versus a regular diesel bus.
Okay.
Yeah.
Can I just ask about the administrative part of, when do you think you'll get, it's a great question on who's gonna have ownership of these buses if the city of Pawtucket wins it under your company's name? Because, you're in a business, you're gonna have to replace the batteries, and one of the things, besides batteries catching on fire, that's actually a big public safety issue that's going through the state now with, all these electric vehicles. The cost of batteries is gonna be extremely expensive, so, when do you think you're gonna get an answer? Who will own the bus itself?
Early in spring 2024.
Oh, okay, good. That's something, that's an important part of negotiations with you. All right. Any other discussion? Oh, Ms. Spinola?
So when does this need to be signed?
Tonight.
tonight.
It's the 15th they're coming to us.
Yeah, the district already did their part. We just waiting for members of the committee to give their blessing as well.
And with that, any other discussion? Then let's, clerk, please call the roll on this one, please.
Ms. Manolo. Mr. Charbonneau. Ms. Doobie. Ms. Fernandez. Ms. Grant. Mr. Shalal.
Yes. Thank you all very much. Second item on the new business, field trip for committee approval, Ms. Ramsey. And I would like to also acknowledge Colonel Richardson is also here. Richardson,
That's correct.
thank you very much. for
Good
coming
evening.
in.
Before you this evening is a field trip request to go out of state. Tillman High School, ROTC, has submitted a field trip request to go to the New England Air Museum in Hartford, Connecticut, with a date to be determined. It'll be 30 cadets, 3 chaperones, and that's funded through the Perkins Grant. Tillman High School, JROTC, is also requesting to go to the Region 1 Physical Fitness Meet in Elizabeth, New Jersey, from February 29th to March 2nd. 12 cadets, 3 chaperones, and they'll be taking the Army Guard van and the U.S. Marine Corps van. Tillman High School JROTC is requesting to go to Cadet Leadership Course from June 24th, 2023 to June 28th, 2023, with 20 cadets, 3 chaperones, and that's funded through the United States Marine Corps. And Tillman High School JROTC is requesting to go to the AMC course, Mount Washington, Bretton Woods, New Hampshire, from August 13 to 15, for 14 cadets, 6 chaperones, funded through Perkins, and will be taking the PSD van. We're requesting approval for this field trip, and Colonel Richardson is here to answer any questions you may have.
Ms. Superintendent, Lisa, I'm assuming you would like us to change the date or get a DeLorean to go back to June? Because it says June of 2023.
Yes, we'll take the time machine and we'll
Yeah,
go
yeah,
back.
yeah.
My apologies, I'll correct that for the record.
It is for 24,
It
or
is
should
for
this be deleted?
2024.
Okay.
And I have one alibi as far as an add-on.
Oh, Colonel, I'm so sorry. Deputy Chair Grant, go ahead.
I just wanna,
Motion approved by Mr. Charbonneau, second by Ms. Doobie.
before we, start talking about this, I'm all for, field trips and things, but if I recall, it was last year, that there was a situation that took place during one of your trips. Parents ended up driving up there, someone took a train home or was gonna take a train home, then everyone came home. I'd like to request that before we approve this, that we have a plan given to us on if there is a problem or there is a situation, that we know how it is going to get rectified. Because like I said, I remember there was, parents were being called, parents were supposed to drive up to get the kids. One set of parents was on their way, then someone was gonna take the train with the kids, and then they decided to just bring everyone home the next day. So, and I think, you know, I know kids will be kids, but if you have one parent that says, hey, I'm not coming to get my kid, but then you got this other parent who's driving 6 hours, I think we really need to have a plan given to us before we do approve these, because I think last year proved that there isn't anything in place. And I think for the sake of the families and the students who don't do anything wrong, that they're able to enjoy the trip.
Yes, if I may, yeah, that's the first time I've ever had problems with any JRTC cadets. I've been teaching since 2008, so it came as a bit of a learning curve for us all at that point in time. Primarily, what we'd take a look at as the permission slip coming from the parents, we would incorporate more of a travel plan in the event of some student irregularities as far as the conduct goes. Typically, we took 2 students last year who came in as second semester seniors. One was under contract with the Marine Corps and one was under contract with the Army, so we anticipated that they'd be of good behavior. They were not. They were part of the problem. all the other students we had had for several years and were comfortable with them. One of the other issues was the Marine Corps changed the date of the competition, so that took us off the naval station at that we were going to stay on, and we ended up having to go to a civilian hotel, so the response by the police would have been drastically different on board the naval station at that point in time. I think basically we have to do a better plan as far as the permission form goes, so just lay that out for the parents, so in the event that, you know, something happens, that they are aware of, you know, what the plan is to, you know, retrieve a child if necessary, that kind of thing. So I think that would probably handle most of the situations that you're concerned about.
You don't think we should be made aware now that, because we are aware that there has been there was a situation, and I know myself, when the process was going through, I didn't think it was being handled properly. Like I said, there's one group of parents driving up, one group of parents not. Someone's gonna take a train and
Well,
then everyone comes back.
again,
So
that
can't
would-
can you guys provide us with the plan to make us feel more comfortable before approving this, that you're going to be submitting to the parents?
Sure. Yes, we can come out with a, you know, a proposed plan as far as handling that, and then incorporate that, the verbiage of the main points of the plan, obviously, into the permission slip, so they know what they're signing up for.
So I know there is a motion on the table, but I would like to, if you would take your motions away, that we table this until we're given the plan.
Okay.
Ms. Grant, I hear you. I'm not inclined to remove my motion. And I'll tell you why. I trust that the colonel tells us he's going to put a plan together. And I trust, Colonel, that you'll get that plan to us at some point. I don't want to hold up the approval of this. I get what you're saying, and I remember the incident as well. And I share your frustration on it. But I'm willing to approve this based on the colonel's word that he's going to put together a tighter plan with a timeline, and whatever it is that he's going to send out to the parents, he will also send to us. I think that's fair. I think the colonel's got a terrific track record here, and I don't want to hold it up. I get what you're saying, but that's where I'm at.
Colonel, I know, how many females do you have in your JROs TC?
If I may look at my phone, I'd get that for you right away. Right now, there are 43 females and 31 males in the JRTC
Okay, so
as cadets.
when you go on these events, I'd like to make sure, not so much the day trips, but when you have overnight, you have the one going to the cadet leadership course. So you have 20 cadets going. I assume that's a significant number of females are going. You only have 3 chaperones.
Right, and that's traditionally that's what we've brought to that event, and we've been doing that event since, well, I've been hosting it since 2008, and now when I started employment here in 2015, we skipped a couple of years for COVID. and-
So do you have female chaperones?
Yes, yes. Typically, that 3 chaperones is, typically I typically hire maybe about 3 more former students who are in the military, okay? And a couple of them will be females, and so they are actually, active duty or Army National Guard who will be there acting as female chaperones during that event. So 3 chaperones is actually the minimum. We usually have about 5 or 6.
Okay, so I just want to make sure that, both populations are equally represented and protected.
Yeah, that's a standard. We don't do any overnights unless we have some sort of female chaperone. I wouldn't really, I wouldn't conduct that event like that. So, if I may just add one more item to the, thing, and it's my fault, I forgot to put this on this because it's not technically a field trip, but it is an event that's overnight. For the last 2 years, we've supported the Ragnar Road Race. That's a long-distance race that starts typically somewhere in Connecticut, and it's about maybe 125 miles, and it's a team event. So we've been working, they have exchange points where runners come in, and then essentially at that point in time, we typically give them a medal for getting halfway through, and then we have our cadets pointing the runners so they don't get lost and get back on the road and do that. And they switch off the teams, that kind of thing. And so occasionally it's some intersection work and parking lot work where you're putting cars in there. So that's an event where that's our main fundraiser, that we get paid for that as far as holding that event. And that's an overnighter. Typically we leave after school ends on Friday, May 17th. And then we're working throughout the night because this road race is rather extensive. Then typically we're done with that event about 6 o'clock in the morning. Cadets, typically we're just sleeping in lawn chairs. It's not the most comfortable evening I've ever spent. I'll be honest with that. And so we do that, and then we come back and drop them back off at Tolman High School. So I'd like to add that on to the permission form because that is an overnight event that we do.
17th to the 18th, and where is it?
It's, I believe it's Hudson, Massachusetts, although, it's going to be somewhere in Massachusetts.
Hudson, Mass?
Right, I believe it's Hudson, but sometimes they change the exchange point on us.
I might need a motion to amend, but let me, Ms. Fernandez, you had a question.
How many years have you been doing this?
Two prior years. This will be our third year coming up.
So I think having one incident in that period of time speaks volumes. And I think, I'm sorry that.
Yeah, thank you. Yes.
One incident.
Right, and that's a totally different from this race. Okay,
Yeah,
that was an overnighter in New Jersey and a team of 12 that we sent down to New Jersey.
Right.
Just to clarify, I think Mr. Fernandez was asking, how many years have you been doing JROTC field trips in our schools?
Oh, since 2015.
Yeah.
And so I feel like we can trust you to,
Thank you.
I think I want to give you the respect that you deserve. I think that you're doing something right if you've had one incident since 2015.
Right,
So,
and I was terribly embarrassed about it, to tell you the truth. It kind of took us.
one incident speaks volumes. I've worked with teens forever, and
Right.
so one incident in that many years, I commend you. You're doing something right.
Thank you.
Thank you.
And I appreciate the support from this committee and from the school department. We're a little bit of a square peg in a round hole, okay? So we try to get our cadets off the campus, doing a lot of career exploration. We've already been on 3 field trips this year, one down to the Army National Guard base in Camp Fogarty. Today, we went down to the Coast Guard station in Newport, and we doing career exploration. Here's some jobs that they can take a look at, and thinking in different ways other than just like, well, I'm not going to think about this until I graduate. We're trying to get them to think ahead and make a plan.
I think it's great that you guys do things with the students, but I do think that we do need to have plans in place, especially when things do go awry. They might not go awry often, but when they do go awry, and last year was a good example of a lot of miscommunication and a lot of confusion, and seeing that these trips aren't until February, March, August, I can't see why, when they do come in front of us, that you don't provide plans to us, so we know that if there is a call or we're notified that there was a situation, we know that there's a plan in place, it's gonna be taken care of. Whereas of last year, the plan just kept changing continuously.
Right, and part of that was that as this information was coming in, we were trying to adjust to it, and also there was communications that we had to get to the superintendent at the time. Okay, and after she got briefed by me, she made some decisions, so we then changed, okay, to accommodate her decision concerning how to handle it. So we can certainly take a look at the, come up with a kind of a standard policy letter and make that part of the package as far as any overnight situations, and again, incorporate that into the highlights of that into a permission form, so this way the parent knows, hey, if this happens, if your kid, does something that is not acceptable to either the city of Pawtucket, the school department, or the United States Marine Corps, that this is how the response is going to be, and this is what they have to do to go fetch their kid necessarily. To be frank, if we're on a military base and somebody does something illegal, to some of that, it's they're going to arrest the kid. And then but we should probably give them, the parent, notice, like, hey, your kid's probably going to be in some holding cell, attached to a United States District Court, and you're going to have to deal with that. So we typically give rather pointed instructions to the kids to let them know that this is where we're at with that. And I was a former military prosecutor. That was my first job on active duty. So I'm a law school graduate and have the Rhode Island bar and a judge advocate. So typically we give them briefs concerning that. So we usually put hopefully a little fear of retribution into them, so they won't do those activities. Unfortunately, we missed that speech in New Jersey last year. That was not given by me.
Couple of members that, you want to let them go first?
Yeah, I lost my train of thought, but I do just want to quickly say thank you for pouring into our students. I met the cadets, and they are a phenomenal group of students, so thank you for what you do.
Thank you.
Joanne and Aaron?
I'd like to amend Jay's motion to add Ragnar Road Race, May 17th to 18th in Hudson, Mass, or Hudson, Connecticut.
Hudson, Massachusetts.
Hudson, Mass, or thereabouts, to the list for approval.
Yeah, okay. That's Bill. Is that the proper way of doing? Okay, all right. Motion by Ms. Vinolo, amendment to the motion, seconded by Ms. Doobie. Discussion? All right, so all those in favor of the amended motion?
Aye.
I say aye. All those opposed? All right. So now we're on the motion with the road race for May 17th to the 18th, sleepover, Hudson, Massachusetts, included to the other 4. All right. Ms. Doobie, you had your hand up. Oh, Joanne,
Make the motion.
oh, okay.
Joanne did it.
Then, any other discussion on the field trip at all? Clerk, please call the roll.
Ms. Bonolo. Mr. Charbonneau. Ms. Doobie. Ms. Fernandez. Ms. Grant.
No.
Mr. Shalell.
Yes. Colonel, thank you. All right. Next item, C, vandalism on school properties. Ms. Grant, Deputy Chair Grant.
So one of the reasons I asked that this be on the agenda is as we are redoing our playgrounds and adding some to the schools, I've noticed over at Carvin McCabe that there has been some vandalism. And I want to make sure that these are, police reports are being filled out, and they are being reported. We spend a lot of money, on these playgrounds or things at the schools on the outside. We don't lock them because we want students and neighbors to be able to use them. But if it does ever come to a point that we feel that we're unable to keep, maintaining them and keeping them up, I just want to make sure that the staff is reporting these. We had an incident over at Carvin McCabe, and I want to make sure that we are doing these things. There was a tree that was completely broken at Carvin McCabe. And I asked that a report be filled out. I don't know if it was. So can we get a list of, at each school in the district, how many vandalism reports have been filled out with the police department for different situations? Okay, yeah, if we could do that, because I do want to make sure that we are, because it could come to someday that we might need to make these decisions. And, you know, we want to make sure that we have this documentation backing up why we're doing this or not doing it. You know, like I said, these are expensive things that we're doing, and we want people to take pride in them. And we also want them to be there every day for the kids in our district who go to school there. And if, you know, if we're walking in every morning and trees are being broken down and slides and swing sets are being tagged, you know, these things definitely have to be reported. So if we could just get a report on, in the district, you know, what the vandalism was and how many reports have been done at each school, that would be terrific. Because I think it's really important that as we build these buildings, you know, our students are taking pride in them, but we also want to make sure that the kids in the neighborhood are taking pride in it. So, and we don't want to, we just don't want it to not look good and stay good and be taken care of. So I definitely think it's important.
All second? Then Ms. Bonolo?
Question on that, how far do you want to go back on the reports?
We could just right now go back to the beginning of the school year, and then we could just keep track of them going forward. I know we're gonna have 2 new playgrounds besides the one we have now. And I know we have the one from Winters that I know and I've heard has had some damage too since being in its spot. So, you know, but I think going forward, it is definitely something we should keep track of.
Any other discussion? Super, I never, Kim, I'm sorry, Diana, you have the motion for, or the request for calendar school year of 2023 from September to, obviously, by the time we'll get it to this Christmas vacation, holiday vacation. Okay, next item. Thank you, Kim. Next item. Payroll issue from November 17th. Please forgive me for my voice. Mr. Charbonneau.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I had requested of the chair that we put this item on. Everyone's aware of the payroll issue we had on the 17th. What I wasn't aware of is, and I want it to be an open conversation to, what was the communication, like, when did we know? How did we process that communication out? Because I heard from people in the community via text message. I received text messages from constituents and members of the community asking if I was aware that there seemed to have been a problem on payday. So I just want us to walk through that timeline of communication. What takeaways do we have now, having gone through it? And what can we do better, God forbid it happen again? I'm aware there wasn't, you know, the explanation was there was a problem with the transmission of the file from the city to the clearinghouse. get it, but what did we learn from what we did well and what maybe we could have done better in terms of communication? That's it. And I think we should all be able to have that conversation openly, honestly, and without much emotion. The people who it affected the most have already been through that, that situation. So that's where I'm at with it.
Can I call Mr. Vocio, our CFO? Thank you, Mr. Vocio.
Good evening. Go ahead, hit me with your first question.
Can you just walk us through the timeline, Anthony, from?
So about 5 o'clock Friday morning, we started receiving messages, emails. Probably somewhere around 6 to 6:15 in the morning, I sent a text message over to the city side to find out if the city was experiencing some of the same conditions that we were experiencing. And we got back in the office on Friday morning to find the issue with the file, which they fixed and was transmitted to the bank by 9:30. The bank withdrew the funds from our account at 9:45. So emails were sent out from the payroll office in that window explaining that to different distribution lists within, and then we fielded other emails that came into us throughout the course of the day and answered, questions.
And I don't mind if I just stop you along the way, but so 5:30, we're made aware of the issue. We reach out to our partners in the city. It seems like there's an issue with the file. And then between that 9:30 and 9:45 window is when we're notifying our affected employees?
No.
Okay.
That's the 9:30 is when we re-released the file to the bank. The bank was able to handle the file at that time and withdraw the funds from our account. So the bank handled that within 15 minutes from receiving.
What was the first communication to the affected employees? I get up Friday morning.
I think it was early in the morning when we got back into the office. So probably somewhere in that, the payroll department probably sent something off to the distribution list early that morning, somewhere between 8 and 9 o'clock. Because we first had to go in and talk to our counterparts and find out exactly what the issue was. So then when we determined there was an issue with the file, then we had something that we could report. Because at that time, we didn't really understand what had taken place.
Perfect.
So we got facts, and then we got that information out through different distribution lists.
Okay.
I think you still go down the timeline, right, Anthony? Because we're at 9:45, and then something happened at noon time, right? Noon or 1 o'clock, it was brought to our attention that the money wasn't going into accounts. Or am I on the wrong day? Because then Saturday,
I think you're on the wrong day.
I'm on the wrong day, aren't I? All right, so let's stay on
Yeah,
Friday.
so our hope on Friday was that by 2 o'clock, all banking transactions, right, for the day typically happen, by 2 o'clock. So our hope was that, by 2 o'clock, we'd start seeing some of that activity in people's bank accounts. I heard learning lesson earlier. So learning lesson for all of us with the banking industry is that's not how the banking industry processes, right? They process, the larger banks seems like they process twice a day, once early in the morning and then once again later in the evening. So people who have do business with the larger banks, i.e. Citizens, Bank of America, probably when they awoke on Saturday morning, they saw that funds were recognized in their accounts. Folks who bank with credit unions weren't seeing those funds. So that was like round 2 of communication as we learned. And that was, I spoke to you on Friday evening, giving you an update where we thought things were. I spoke to you again Saturday morning and told you where we were. And from then, I recommended not to send any emails out, to have phone calls made to heads of both unions, which we did. We spoke with both unions on Saturday morning, explained the situation. If you want to call it a blind spot in all of this, is once we transmit the file to the bank and the bank puts that information into the banking system, we really don't have visibility to it. So now we're relying on those emails and that correspondence back and forth as we learned along the way that, okay, we got confirmation. Folks at Bank at Citizens saw their money. Folks at Bank of America were seeing their money. It seemed like, again, some of the large institutions, they were seeing their money. Credit unions, they were not. So credit unions did not post until Monday morning. So Sunday night, Monday morning.
Saturday morning, we're in contact with the leadership on both unions, explaining that there may still be a delay based on the banking institution of each individual employee. We have that conversation Saturday morning, and how are we disseminating that information out to, because we don't know who's affected and who's not, right?
We're learning it as we receive the emails, right? Because
Right.
I don't know where everybody all banks,
Right.
right? And so we were learning that as we got different communications back that, you know, my bank, we're not seeing it in my bank, we're not seeing it in my credit union, we're not seeing it here or there, so.
And I think, so maybe there to me is an opportunity. So we didn't go back to the email list and send out a communication to cover everybody?
No,
We were waiting for
no,
individuals to come in?
No. There were further communications on Saturday as we were collecting more information and data. Superintendent published a letter out to everybody in the district.
Okay.
I believe, correct me if I'm wrong, Superintendent, as the days go back and forth as we go through, the mayor published a letter. I don't know if that was Saturday or Sunday. And the mayor put out a letter too.
I know that the superintendent or someone wrote an email to go out to the staff, two-ish, and then you guys, I think, got in touch with Hirsch, and you did a reverse 911, and you
Right.
gave the audio
Right. And
of
then-
the
and then-
email itself around 4 or
Right.
5.
From there, after,
That's
as we
Saturday.
collected the data through Saturday, right, we published her letter, then we did a robocall, and then we did like robo-email, right, to try and alert folks to where things stood. As we learned the information. We were still learning throughout the course of the day Saturday who saw it and who didn't, because we don't know where everybody banks, so it's very
Right.
difficult to determine, you know, where people are.
Right.
It's really, quite frankly, none of our business where they bank.
Right.
So,
So those,
but I think, to answer your question, right, I think with the credit unions, we're learning that they're small. They don't really have the back office manpower, so when their back office comes back into play, whether that's Sunday night, they start running their computer jobs or whatever, or early on a Monday morning, that's when they took the file from our bank and started processing it, and then.
so we're communicating to the entire employee base throughout the day on Saturday.
And we also made,
Go ahead.
I just wanted to add that, Mr. Vocio was also making personal calls as well and answering personal emails. So it was constant communication throughout all day, Friday, Saturday, Sunday.
And Sunday. Okay. That's all I really wanted to know. I think it's important that the team get together and figure out, okay, have this kind of conversation amongst the team to say, is there anything we should have done differently? And if so, do we have a plan to do that in the unfortunate event that this should ever occur again? And, one time that I've been here in 10 years is one too many. But I just want to make sure, because that's the one thing that will destroy morale quicker than anything else. If people don't get paid when they expect to get paid, then, you know, it, beyond all the other reasons it's not right, the damage it can do to the morale in a district this size is, you know, could be devastating. So I commend our teachers union, our non-certified union, all the affected employees for handling it the way they did. And I want to make sure that we have a plan in place, like I said, should it ever happen again. Anthony, I appreciate the timeline.
Want to personally thank our union leaders. I think I called y'all about 8:30, between 8 and 9, it was early on a Saturday morning. They responded, got on the call because Mr. Beaupre was dealing with a personal matter. And I just want to share, having walked in those shoes in one of my previous districts, I worked the 7th largest district in the nation. I went without pay for 2 times at that period. And one thing that we are looking into is, like we did previously in my previous district, was to work with some of the union, the smaller banks, or maybe some of the larger banks, asking what we did. And as a result of that was we went and, I guess, created a partnership with some of the banks. So even if that happened in the future, they would give us a 30-day non-interest loan. So for example, when it happened our second time, I didn't get paid, then I went online, did a quick little, very short application, because I'm a member, and then they would front me whatever, I think I asked for like $500. So then they would front me the $500. I can go withdraw that immediately until my check hit Monday or Tuesday. So Anthony, I was talking about setting up some meetings with some branch managers to build some of that partnership, because it is a serious matter to be in a situation like that. No matter what you make, no matter who you are, no one deserves that to have to go without pay. So those are just some of the avenues we are looking into.
Thank you.
Joey, then Kim?
Was it our file that was corrupt, or was it the transfer on the city?
It was not our file.
Okay, so similar to what you were talking about, when you transfer, when does the file transfer, on Friday morning or Thursday?
We try and complete payroll by Tuesday afternoon and have it to the city side probably by 2 o'clock on Tuesday, and then the city does what they need to do in terms of funding the payroll accounts and things of that nature, so that the money sit in the account when the bank gets it, and they can take the money out of our account and then put it into the banking system.
So don't they get a confirmation that funds are received that would alert them that the banks have not received the money to cover the payroll?
Well, they would probably see that the money's taken out of the account if they went back in and checked the payroll account to see that the funds have been withdrawn.
Yeah, but isn't that a procedure that you could check to, you know, give you a day's extra alert that something went wrong? So some people.
So, hold on a second. Let me answer the question. Recall that was a short week, right? Monday holiday. So normally we would process Monday, Tuesday. So I'm thinking on a regular week. That particular week was a Monday holiday, which means we processed Tuesday, Wednesday. So we were shortened in that week. So then that file's probably going off Thursday, right? Thursday afternoon, Thursday, and then Friday morning everything hit. So the ability to go in when it's worked every other time with different things are going on, you know, to go back and check that account to make sure it went through, yeah, probably would be, right? They probably did that every other week. But in this particular week, being a short week and moving on to the next task that you have to do, we didn't check. Probably didn't check. I don't want to speak for them. That's not, that account's not on our side. So.
Yeah.
Kim, then Masha?
I'm just wondering if there were any employees that came to us and asked if we could provide them with a check. And if that was the case, do we have the ability, or should we have had the ability to work with the city to try to pay them up front with them reimbursing us, especially with that being the weekend before Thanksgiving, and some people do live paycheck to paycheck?
We don't have a checking account. We don't have a checkbook. We don't process
Well,
checks. That's
no,
all.
I know you wouldn't, but I would assume that if some of the teachers or the staff, they would come to our HR department or our accounting department looking for help or assistance. And if that was the case, I don't know if anyone had come to you guys or had come to the department, would you guys, or were you guys working with the city to see if we could get a check?
We
annual check to
looked
them?
at every option on that morning, right? But again, once the payroll was funded and the funds were dispersed, right? Technically, folks are paid. So the money's already been released and out for that payroll. So to kind of go back, the city runs checks twice a month, every other week, right? So the ability to go in and just create a check is not like, personally, we have a checkbook and write out a check. It's not as simple as that. But the bigger issue was the funds were withdrawn from our account and the money was put in the banking system on Friday morning. So after that, it was just a matter of when individuals would see it in their account. And again, the hope at that time was that they would see it by 2:00, because that's when that banking day, in theory, ends, right? After 2:00, all business goes on the next banking day.
So basically what you're saying is, if a staff member came to accounting or HR, we wouldn't work with them, with the city, to try to help get some funds to get
No, I'm not
reimbursed
saying
to
that.
them later?
No, I didn't say
Okay.
that.
Then what are you saying? Because
We-
that's what it sounds like.
No.
Okay.
We looked at all options, right? And so cutting a check at that moment was not an option. There's procedural controls in place to prevent checks from just going out of the building,
Well,
right?
we don't have a checkbook, so it
But on
wouldn't
the
come.
right, but
It wouldn't come from here, it would come from the city.
Right, would have to come from the city side. But again, once the file was corrected and the funds were withdrawn,
Right. But
payroll's
people-
paid.
Right.
I
but like
understand what you're saying.
said,
I understand.
People did not receive the money, nor it was also a holiday weekend. We wouldn't try to help the people in our district and know that they're going to give the money back to us?
We did try to help the people in our district when we were trying to get down to the root cause of what caused the issue.
Okay.
I'm not pointing any blame, because I know I've had this happen to me a couple times in my career, and it's awful. But the way I learned about this was there was a lot of negative talk about the school committee and the superintendent around the teachers not getting paid, directly made by teachers. So for me, I was like, oh my goodness, because again, being new, I didn't really know the process. But come to find out, like, it's not anybody, like, I think it's important that the teachers understand how this process works, because there was a lot of blame thrown at the school committee, at the superintendent, and it wasn't, I don't think they even
Want to come sit at my
understood-
desk and read the ugly grams that I got?
Shoot, I'm sorry, I don't.
We got some,
Well, yeah, and I think that's important that people understand where their pay's coming from, because they were saying some harsh things, and again, I get it, it's happened to me before.
No, I
It's
understand
rough, but
I understand
I
frustration.
think that they should understand how this process works, because, and I think that should have been prior to this whole conversation, is thank you, is explaining how that works, like how they get paid, because I don't think some of the teachers understood that, because there was a lot of blame being thrown. So, and just so I understand it, can you tell us how that works? Like, how does payroll happen? How do those checks get cut? Because,
so as I said, we send the file to our bank. right? Our bank then takes that file, once they read it, and there's data in that file, right? I don't want to get too technical. It's data,
The school district, or are you saying the city?
we,
'Cause I-
we provide our piece of payroll to the city, okay? And then the city, because they manage the cash, the city moves the money around, right? So if I went and said, she's my only employee, she just mentioned $500, the city's gonna put $500 in the payroll account. That's the account they have set up with the bank, for the bank to go in. The bank has permission to go into that account upon receipt of the file and take those funds. Then they put those funds into the banking industry, right? There's some reconciliation that's gonna go on, right? Okay, which I think, as Jay mentioned, is banking terminology, the clearinghouse, right? And it gets reconciled, then the money has to then be dispersed from there into all those individual banks with a file that reads, right? Citizens Bank gets some lump sum, and then they need to know the accounts that that money's going into. Bank of America, Rhode Island Credit Union, right? Coastal, all the other people, St. Anne's and Fall River, they were the last to probably come in, right? Not that I'm picking on any one institution, but that's how we were collecting the information, trying to see that, right? We were on the phone with Rhode Island Credit Union. We were on the phone with Coastal. Did you get our file? Are you moving it through? We called banks. We did everything we could during that whole period of time. So from the clearinghouse to the individual institutions, all we can look at from what we could see is that it looks like the file sat at some of the institutions until someone from their back office came in and then proceeded to do their daily task, which would then open up the servers and run their computer jobs. And, you know, that's why we found in this particular instance, if we just look at how the data, it seems like the credit unions all hit on Monday morning and the larger institutions posted on Saturday morning. So looks like the larger institutions may run twice a day and the small institutions maybe once, Monday through Friday. But
Thank you.
maybe next round we can bring all the presidents of the different institutions in and ask them how they run their computer operation centers, and we'll understand a little bit more. But I'm not being fresh. You know, we had the same, we're trying to fill in the dots too. How one institution was showing up and not showing up in another institution. So,
Thank you.
Ms. Manola?
Just one more question. Do you know now that anyone who had overdraft has been made whole?
probably on Tuesday, the next check run on Tuesday. We compiled the list based on everybody who submitted overdraft and/or fees to us. We've supplied that list to the city. The city has been gracious enough to absorb all those charges. And from what I asked this morning if that was going to be processed through payroll, if it was going to be processed through accounts payable. I was told accounts payable, so the next accounts payable check run is Tuesday. So that means they'll create a batch, process, and then, again, then from Treasury into the mail, so, you know, maybe in mailboxes Friday or Saturday.
Okay.
My last question, everyone get paid? Is there anyone waiting?
Not to my knowledge.
Perfect, all right. All right, any other discussion about this very important and very unfortunate situation? Thank you, Mr. Charbonneau, for bringing it forward. Anybody else? Questions? Thank you guys very much. Can I have a motion for adjournment?
Second.
Motion by Ms. Pinola, second by Deputy Chair Grant. All those in favor? All those opposed? We're adjourned. Thank you very much.